order.
Yes.
Time is 6:02. I'm going to take the roll. Jeffrey?
Here.
Rebecca Ward?
Here.
Bill Crouch?
Here.
Alex Crawford here. Has the meeting been duly noted?
Yes, 48 hours proper notice.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda, number 2 down the bottom of the new business. To amend it to add Rod Danner to the committee, and to the people on the committee.
Okay. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
A second.
Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the agenda is approved, 4-0. Okay, we have a new thing tonight, the consent items. Okay, consent items are number 1, motion to accept John Borderline for 4 hours to review potential sale and suit for unpaid taxes. And a vote to ratify payment to Wetland Sciences, $595 as goodwill for services where proper procedure was not followed by a committee member who contracted for said service. What items do the board wish to be removed from the consent agenda?
None.
You just said no.
Yeah.
Okay. So the items left are, I'll read out again, motion to accept John Borderline Esquire for 4 hours to review potential sale and suit for unpaid taxes, vote to ratify payment to Wetland Sciences, $595 as goodwill for services where proper procedure was not followed by a committee member who contracted for said service. If there are no objections, these items will be adopted. As there are no objections, these items are adopted. And this is by the board, it's unanimous consent.
Yeah, no discussion.
No, that's why it's unanimous consent.
I believe 720 says any member can speak on anything on the agenda.
On the consent items, we got this from our attorney on Tuesday.
No.
There's nothing in our copy to say consent.
Who made the motion? Who seconded it?
It's unanimous consent. I've just
Cut out the
read
members again.
Okay, I'm gonna say the items. Can you hear me, Rebecca?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, the items are number 1, motion to accept John Borderline Esquire for 4 hours to review potential sale and suit for unpaid taxes. Vote to ratify payment to Wetland Sciences, $595 as goodwill for services where proper procedure was not followed by a committee member who contracted for said service. Did the agreement for John Borderline get printed out?
Yes, I have it for signature.
You have it, and we do not need a binder retainer.
I just have one comment, Madam President. I believe the suit is a foreclosure action, not an unpaid taxes action, but that's just a minor correction in the wording.
Yeah, there's actually in the sale, there are 2 things. In the sale, there are unpaid taxes. Those are the items that Bill got from the property assessor when we were dealing with the other issue. Okay, new business. Discussion and presentation by human resource companies requested by membership. And the first to go is Yvonne Harper. Yvonne?
Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Do I need to state my name and address?
No, go ahead.
All right, so at the request of the board, Mary and I, another homeowner, thank you for your help, had contacted the 4 companies who presented their proposals a couple of weeks ago, and I have 2 of the representatives here from Simple, Shannon and Carrie. Is that right? So if there are any questions, like any detailed questions after I go through them or their proposal, they are here to answer those with regards to healthcare benefits or any of the labor burden costs that they are presenting. In the effort to be consistent, they thought it was important to show what we have now for the 25%. Our labor burden under First Services, First Residential is 25%. This is all this is. It's not the pros and cons of management. It's just simply what the 25% that we are charged for the labor burden for First Services includes. And so we provided, Mary and I provided a list of those services to the companies to see if they could match it. And it was simple. Many of the items they could match, and then the other items they could provide at additional cost.
Either raise it or speak into it a little thing.
Is that better? I did print some PowerPoints. I didn't print many. There's about 15 here if anybody wanted to just go through them as I was reading if you can't see the board. So what First Services provides within their 25%, their human resources services include advertising, recruiting, pre-screening, and counseling. They also do drug testing. It's at pre-hire random and following an incident. They have background screening and I-9 monitoring. What I-9 monitoring is just to ensure that someone is here legally in the United States and can legally work in this country. They do payroll processing, payroll tax reporting, and they have a 401k employer contribution, and it's a 40% match up to 6% of the salary. Is that all self-explanatory? So up to 6% of their salary, they match 40%. They also include a life insurance, which is a $15,000 policy. They include team and employee meetings, appreciation awards, and recognition. Uniforms, jackets for 9 maintenance staff, and I think additional staff. They have cell phones for the general manager, for the maintenance personnel, and your 2 architectural staff. They are also provided cell phones. The laptop is provided to the general manager. This is owned by First Services. They have mileage reimbursement. The general manager uses mileage to attend corporate meetings that are mandatory at the regional office. That's an example of what mileage would be reimbursed. They have vehicle insurance and extended coverage beyond what the association carries. They also include employer's liability insurance. Any questions so far? They have an insurance fund, which includes employee theft. They have training and course materials. There's about 3,500 online classes that employees can take, plus live training seminars that are offered periodically for employees. They offer the technology and support for Connect accounting and architectural software. They also have safety materials and supplies and safety inspections, and annual inspections are done by an OSHA-approved individual. They also provide posters and printed materials, certification, CAM, CPO, continuing education, and licensing. With regards to healthcare, now we have to please keep in mind that any healthcare premiums is board directed with regards to how much the Holly by the Sea will pay for the premiums. So Holly by the Sea has elected for many years to pay 100% of the premium. So the cost is 100% of the premium is $485, and again, that's board directed. So even if we go with one of the HR companies, it's still up to the board to determine how much they will cover. Are there any questions with that? So that cost will vary, okay, as we'll see with Simple's insurance. So here we go. So Simple HR proposal. John Tundello was very gracious with his time in providing information. He would have liked to have been here, but he had a personal matter that was already that had already taken place that he needed to attend. But we do have 2 of the representatives here. So their rates. Here we go. Within their rates, it's the Florida 901-2, and this is the category of employees, because employees fit in different categories based on what they do. So based on the categories provided to them by Holly by the Sea, their rates are as such. So the 9012 is your building operations, your managers, agents, clericals. There are 9. They were told there would be 15 employees who would be here from the previous proposal provided to Alex Crawford. That rate is 14.73%. The Florida 9015 employee code, which are building operations and all other employees, there would be 6 is 17.84%. So when the state and federal caps of 7,000 are met, it was 8,000, but it dropped this year to 7,000. Then the rates dropped to 11.43% and 54% respectively. So that rate will vary as well. It will not be consistent throughout the year because it depends on how much the individual makes. So whenever an individual reaches that 7,000 cap in salary, when they make $7,000, everything above that, it drops to 11.43% or 14.54. So if someone is making $50,000 a year, obviously they're going to reach that $7,000 salary cap much sooner than someone making, say, $10 an hour. So it will vary throughout the year, and it resets every year. Am I doing okay?
Yes.
All right.
Yvonne, I have a question.
Yes.
If the number of staff increase, does the percentage stay the same, or does it go up or
No,
down?
that percentage stays the same.
Okay.
But again, the lower percent is based on meeting that $7,000 salary cap.
Right.
And of course that varies. But no, am I correct in saying that? Okay. All right, so the rate breakdown. So the employer taxes, the way they broke it down is your Social Security and Medicare is 7.65%. The federal unemployment is 0.6%. Your state unemployment is 2.7%. So the total employer taxes is 10.95% plus the administrative fee of 2.33%. Your workman's comp insurance, based again on the type of employees that were provided by Holly by the Sea. Your building operations and managers accounts or agents and clerical are at 1.45%, and then your 9015 category is 4.56%. It is important to keep in mind, and I did speak with John at length about this, workman's comp does not cover tree cutting, removal, or the replacement of parking lot lights. Those things will have to be outsourced. If Holly by the Sea employees choose to go out to the back 40 and cut a tree and they get hurt, the workman's comp insurance will not cover that. So that's very important to keep that in mind, because I know that there's been some discussion about, employees not being able to do those type of services. Those type of services would still have to be outsourced.
Yvonne,
Yes.
does that also include tree trimming, or is that the same thing as tree cutting?
As far as I understand, yes. Now, if you're just pulling a twig, that's one thing, but any tree work, okay? All right, so your professional payroll services within the percent provided includes payroll and taxes processing. Your workman's comp insurance is pay as you go, so you're paying exactly what you owe, and there is no audit at the end of the year. The safety and loss control, your HR administration, the monitor 19 compliance. Again, this is ensuring that those who work here are legal to be in the United States and to work in the United States. They provide employee manuals, benefit administration, the 401k administration, your health, dental, group life insurance, and then section 125 plans. So what do these mean? So again, as I stated earlier, your 7,000 state and federal cap. Now, this is referred to as FUTA and SUTA, which simply means Federal Unemployment Tax Act, and then your State Unemployment Tax Act. So when you hear those terms, that's what it's referring to. It's at 7,000. So again, once that 7,000 is met, then the rate drops. So any questions on that? Yes.
I got one question.
Yes.
It was my understanding that the rate didn't drop after they met that $7,000
No,
threshold.
Their percentage, what they're charging,
Payroll services.
the payroll services drops, the percentage.
Not the FUTA and SUTA, what they charge us.
What they charge. Because within their payroll services of 14.73% and 17.84%, respectively, once that 7,000 FUTA and SUTA salary cap is met, then their rate drops to 11.43 and 15.54% respectively. The labor burden drops.
How much they charge us.
Yes. Yes.
I have two questions.
Okay.
First question is, are all the employees making over the $7,000 cap?
I am not privy to what personnel make, but I would imagine if someone works here full-time, they probably do make more than $7,000 a year. Maybe your seasonal workers don't, but I'm not privy to personnel employment information, so I don't know how much the personnel now make, so.
Okay,
Yes.
question number 2 is, the 401K matching. I didn't see a figure for 401K matching here, but I saw it on the.
Shannon?
What is
The 401K matching, what is the percent that you guys match, do you know?
That would be, determined by the board. So if it was 40% of up to 6%. If it was voted for to continue that amount going forward, then that's what it would be, or that can change. The match with Simple HR can be whatever the board decides on, or whatever's voted on.
So then from my understanding, it's board directed, that 40% or 30% or whatever the matching percent is would be board directed.
So
just
that's
like
that's not a function of fees paid to the management company.
Well, they administer it. They're the ones who administer that program. But the board sets the matching rate, just like the board sets how much of the healthcare premiums they'll cover. Yes.
How many employees, and I don't want individual numbers, what's the total that Holly by the Sea is paying for the matching?
Right now?
Yeah,
I don't know. You have to ask Alex Finley.
just a lump sum amount.
I don't-
Does everybody get matching?
Everyone that contributes to a 401K gets
Okay,
matching, but
and
I
how many
can't tell
would
you
that
what
be?
that data is. I don't have access to how much employees are saving on their 401K.
So we really don't know.
But you're not billed for that separately, it is included in the burden rate. You're not billed for that contribution.
And I imagine that would be a choice, right? Someone wouldn't have to choose to invest in the 401K.
Right.
That would be their choice to do that.
Is it part of the burden that the 14 and the 17% that you've outlined here, is it part of the burden of that, or would that be in addition?
In addition.
In addition for this one.
Well, it's the administrative cost of that, but whatever the board sets, would that be an additional cost? Would you guys charge an additional cost for the matching?
Yes.
Yes.
However, for first service,
It's included.
if it's included,
It's
in the burden, it's not additional.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so payroll and taxes processing includes accurate W-4 information, your annual production. Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
So for reference sake, since we right now say it sounds like we have 4% is what first services pays, can we add 4% to those figures, percentage wise? Because from what I understand, if you're 11 point whatever the number is, it's gonna be plus 4%.
I don't think you can say that, because it would depend on how many people are contributing themselves. And as Alex Family said, we have absolutely no idea what that is.
We have
It
no
could
idea how
be-
many employees we're gonna have.
We have no idea how many of the employees that we have now, or we may have in the future, would contribute to a 401K.
But if you want to keep comparing apples to apples, then you would have to say, you have to go with the worst case, that they're gonna ask for 4% be added, and that's why.
But they would all have to be
Mrs. Crawford, could I
contributed.
finish a sentence, please?
Excuse me, you need to come up to the front and speak. We don't,
She's been taking questions from back here.
okay, but if you've got a lot
Well,
of
let me
things to-
just ask simple, because I am not an expert
Okay.
on their 401K management, and this is why we asked them to be here. So, if the board elects to continue the 40% matching, does that add anything to the 14 and 11% burden rate respectively?
It would be a separate rate, so if it's up to, if we're using that 6% based on the employee salary, and just to make things kind of simple, if we're doing 50% up to 6%, that equals out to 3% of each employee who's contributing up to 6% their salary. So that would be 3% of each individual employee's salary. So it is kind of difficult to determine what exactly that figure would be without knowing what the employee salaries are, or who would be contributing and how much they would be contributing.
But based on your example, it would add 3% to, say, the 14%. Is that?
No, it would be cause if we're doing up to 6% of an individual employee's salary, it would just be 3% of that employee's specific salary. So if 6% of an employee's salary equals out to, say, $50, then the board, if it's a weekly payroll, the board would do $25 on that.
Gotcha.
So,
But how
so
much
what
do
I-
you charge then to do that?
The fee for the administration, for the 401k administration, that's included, that's not separate.
I think that's.
But all the
included.
money would be in addition,
Yes.
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, again, I'm just trying, asking questions as we've been asked, said to do. I'm trying to make sure I got this straight. Right now, an employee can get 4%, they put in 4%, FSR will match that. Is that correct? For a total of 8%?
I'm having a hard time hearing. I think you need to come up with a microphone.
What he's asking is if an employee pays 4%, does FSR match the 4%?
We match 40% of everything contributed up to 6% total salary for that individual.
So if they contribute 4%, then they're going to.
40.
No, if an employee contributes 4%, was that your question?
No. I just wanna make sure I got, the maximum contribution apparently that an employee can make is?
6% of their salary, we will match 40% of that.
So
There's no
40
maximum they can contribute.
So 40% of 6% is roughly 3.5%? 2.5%?
2.4%.
So so I just want to confirm that the simple HR number should be upped by that amount that the employees are going to be, or that they will be matching so that we have apples to apples. The number is already included in FSR. If you're going to have a matching fund and it's going to raise your costs, then you should compare apples to apples. If you're going to match up to 3% of what the employee contributes, then that number should be added to the number of employees.
I understand what you're saying, but I think it would be difficult to provide those numbers, just like it was difficult to provide hard numbers, and I was asked repeatedly by Ms. Crawford to do so with healthcare because we don't know how many employees there will be, what they will choose to contribute, and what the board will elect to. So there would be an added cost, but as far as administering that program, that is included in the fee.
I understand. I'm asking for 100% assumption because that way you understand what your maximum liability is.
Mhm.
That's what, when you're programming and when you're planning, you have to understand what your exposure is. Here's your assumption, it's 100%. Otherwise, you have to make other assumptions if you say only 80%, and then you tell us what the assumptions are. But in lieu of other assumptions, you have to assume 100% liability for all of us so we can compare apples to apples. That's what I'm asking.
And I understand, and I think that's valid, but that's information that I don't have. I don't know in hard numbers how many employees will be here, and then what those employees will elect to do. So while I understand your point, that's not something that I could then turn around and ask simple.
May I just make one point? You're trying to add the 2% or 3%, whatever number you're coming up with, to the entire labor burden. You've got two different buckets here. The labor burden that she mentioned is based on gross payroll numbers, not the contributions for 401k. So you have two different things that we're talking about. You can't combine the two and just add an additional percentage on to the bottom.
I'll wait until I see the rest of the numbers.
Okay.
Oh, I'd just like to, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
I'd just like to mention one thing. In the labor burden, we included one laptop. Now, if we've got 30 staff members, so to each of the 30 staff members, is that a contribution as a fraction of one laptop? It seems that in the labor burden of FSR, there are some one-off things. We would probably be better buying a laptop, and then it would belong to Holly by the Sea. I mean, how long is this added in the labor burden? You know, how many thousands of dollars do we accumulate for the labor burden? And similarly for the uniforms, not everybody has a uniform. So you have a lot of charges that are not for everybody. With these companies that I believe you'll hear tonight, we have charges that apply to everybody, as opposed to charges that apply a one-off charge. For example, the vehicle insurance. Now, either Holly by the Sea are inadequately insuring their vehicles, and we pay $80,000 a year on insurance for our vehicles, and I have to ask, why would First Service insure the vehicles on top of that? Again, we have a policy that takes care of employee theft, and I actually called Kelsey at Willis and confirmed this. So we pay this in the $80,000 a year insurance that we pay. So these charges are being added into the labor burden that are one-off charges, whereas what these other people are quoting are what everybody pays. Whether they're maintenance people, they pay a certain amount, and the clerical and the other people have a different amount. It's different by the workman's comp. I'm sorry, Doug.
Yes.
I think what we're trying to figure out, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is, well, all we're trying to see is whether or not the companies that are here have new presentations, if they have additional fees that will be charged to provide the same level of services.
There are some, and
that we
I
currently have.
was going,
And that's,
it's not done yet,
yeah,
so
but
there
that's,
are a
that's
few.
the only thing that we're trying to determine.
Yes, and
by
that's
asking
why I
the
showed the labor burden for that 25%, what it includes for FSR, and so that's what we requested. We sent, this is okay, this is what's within the 25%. Now, what can you do, can you match these? And so that's why I'm going through this slide by slide, slide by slide. Okay, any other questions? Good questions, by the way. Okay, so your workman's comp, again, it's a pay-as-you-go, so this is a large group, and it means that Holly by the Sea pays exactly what is used, and there's also no audit at the end of the year. Again, your I-9, your 1-9 compliance is it checks the employee's legal status. Your 401k is Transamerica, they're the company who manages that. Your Section 125 plan, what this does is it allows the government, it's a government plan that allows the HR company to take the employee deductible pre-tax. So if someone is at the cusp of, at a tax rate, an income tax, then they do this pre-tax, so that could actually lower them into, the lesser category with regards to income tax. Okay. That's the benefit to the employees. All right, your life insurance, they do offer a $15,000 policy, which is $3 per employee. So this was something I think that you were asking. That's monthly, so regardless of how many employees we have, each one would be $3 a month. There is higher coverage available for employees if they wish to take it. The health insurance, again, is very hard to get firm numbers because they don't have the demographics that they need. So not only will the employees' demographics determine the premium, but also the plans chosen by the board. Okay, but the board of directors would be responsible for 50% of the lowest rate. So if the lowest rate premium is $300, then Holly by the Sea would be responsible for $150, and then that $150 would transfer over to the larger premiums, and that's what they would pay with the higher premiums. Now, again, and this is portable, so if an employee leaves here, they can take the health insurance plan with them. Now, what's important to understand is 50% of any number is going to be lower. So, 50% of the 498 or 489, which that we're paying now, 45, thank you, will be lower because it's 50%. But I encourage the board in an email to keep it at 100% the premium, because that is what Holly by the Sea has paid for the better of 10 years. And some of these employees don't make a lot, so to pay an extra 50%, in my opinion, might be a burden that they can't sustain. But again, that's board of directors. They're the ones who have to decide that. That has nothing to do with the HR companies. But their plan is 50%. Okay. Their dental is group coverage. And then what they do provide, they do provide safety materials and safety inspections and posters and printed materials. What they can provide that's not in this rate is your employer's liability insurance. It's not needed, but let me finish this sentence. But it does protect the association from any EO complaints, or lawsuits, and it's $12.50 per employee. So if someone feels that they've been erroneously fired or harassed, and they file a lawsuit against the association, that's what this employer's liability insurance protects. So it's not included in the labor burden, but it is something that can be purchased.
Back to health insurance, sorry, I didn't mean to take so long to process this. So what I'm understanding is that Simple HR may or may not be providing a comparable plan to what FSR is providing. Has anybody done an analysis?
I've got some sheets up here if you'd like to look. They did provide, what they were able to provide is their top 3 plans. So within the companies that they manage, not manage, but that they do payroll, services for, their employees have chosen different plans, and they did send me the top 3 with examples of what's provided. So, and it looked like pretty good coverage, but again, that would be board driven.
Again, trying to compare costs and what we should be looking at is providing the same level of cost, same level of coverage that's provided right now. So that we should take the most, if their plans are not comparable, then we should take them, if the first 2 plans don't match, then the third plan does, at least cover everything. That would be the cost that should be taken when we're considering costs.
Well, from my understanding, again, that would be board driven. What the board elects to provide as far as coverage, and I do have this side by side. I have what First Services provides their health plans, and then Simple's top 3. So there is kind of a comparison, but it's difficult because they don't have the demographics they need to give those hard numbers. So while I understand what you're saying, and I spoke with John at length about this, they just don't have the information to provide that. Because if they did provide a qualified number, and then they get the information, and then their insurance says, well, we're charging more, then that doesn't make them look very good, because then they have to come back and say, well, based on the demographics, the insurance rates are a little bit higher than what we told you before. So
things are going to change because you're changing insurance companies. Pre-existing conditions are going to have to be covered, et cetera.
Yes.
So it's going to be more expensive for the individuals if they have a pre-existing condition.
Well, pre-existing conditions don't matter anymore. That's not taken into consideration, and that's not looked at when a health insurance policy is
Then why do
written.
we need demographics?
Well, we need the individual demographic based on age, gender, and then location. Those are the demographics that the insurance company looks at when they're quoting a group.
Family plan, single.
Correct.
Yeah, the Affordable Care Act, you can't, under that, there's pre-existing conditions are no longer, the individual can't be penalized. There are other variables, and that's why I said they would need those demographics. Okay?
Okay, so I have a question about that.
Yes.
Okay, so this insurance plan, this health insurance plan here, the Simple company, is that the name of the company, Simple?
Simple HR.
Simple HR. Simple HR is not offering the same policy with the same features at the same price. Because what I'm seeing here is that somebody has to pay the difference in the money here. So does that shift to the individual employees to pay that? Who pays that? If it's not offered at the same thing where Holly is already getting paid, the board is already getting they're going to pay.
Currently, and I believe we had this discussion in December, for quite some time, there are many different plans. There's a sort of base amount, and if they want anything else like spousal coverage, child coverage, lower premiums, whatever with the FSR insurance, then they pay the difference now.
Okay, so you're saying that if we shift to this other policy, we get this company, will this be the rule, or Holly's gonna determine that Holly's gonna pay the full coverage, which is what I heard the young lady up here saying? That you recommend.
I recommend it because, the premium, because Holly by the Sea has paid the 100% of the premium.
But right now, that's not being offered with this, that's what I'm trying to.
This is 50%, but the board can elect to increase that. That's just what her services,
so
the
the
board
can do that, but you guys haven't offered a policy that has that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, okay, let me.
Just 1 minute. Could we kind of make this orderly, and go back to the one speaking for 3 minutes? The board would determine, as they've always done, the level of insurance. That would be the answer to your question.
That's not the answer to my question.
What Kelly is handing out, I think it might help you. The one that's in landscape form, this is First Services plans. okay? Now, obviously, it doesn't have any personal information, but these are the plans that they offer. These, the regular long 11, these are the top 3 healthcare plans that people who have simple HR choose. So it kind of gives you an idea. So while it can't be, like you were saying, apples to apples, we can see that the top 3 chosen plans, apparently because they're popular, based, and then compare that to what they have now.
Okay, that's not where I'm going. I'm not interested in the details. I know you can buy an insurance policy for anybody. I mean, what I want to know is, I want to know what's going to happen to the people that work here. Are they going to have to pay to get coverage? Whereas right now Holly's paying for it, or are they not? That's all I really want to know.
And I agree with you.
And it doesn't take 3 minutes.
That's why I recommended that Holly by the Sea, the board of directors, continue that practice of 100% paying the premium. But again, that's not my decision. I'm not on the board. I can't make that decision. That's up to the board. This is just what their base is. It would require 50% of the premium to be paid by Holly by the Sea. But again, the board can elect to continue the 100% premium that the practice of has been in place for at least 10 years.
Thank you.
So, and that's why I made that recommendation. And there may be those who disagree, and that's okay. It's okay to voice that. Right.
Can I ask one question though? The portability of it, does that mean they can take that same plan, and if they're not working here, they can take that plan with them at the same price?
Yes, as far as
it does.
That's
well,
the way
it would be continuation of coverage. So it would be, you could have the same plan for up to 18 months if an employee terminated.
At the same price?
There is a 2% administrative fee included on top of that.
So it's not like Cobra?
It would be just like Cobra.
Okay.
The portability that was inserted means that the plan is owned by Holly by the Sea. So when we write the plan, it's owned by Holly by the Sea. So if Holly by the Sea were ever to, if they partnered with Simple HR and then they were ever to leave Simple HR, that group policy is owned by Holly by the Sea, and you could take that with you.
Okay, so that doesn't mean if Holly by the Sea loses an employee, they quit or they get fired or whatever, can they still take the plan with them?
They could Cobra the plan.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know.
All right, so again, things that they can provide is the employer's liability insurance and your mileage reimbursement. They can manage this, they can track. Now, obviously, they wouldn't pay it. I mean, that mileage reimbursement would come out of Holly by the Sea, but they can manage that program. They can track that and assist Holly by the Sea with setting the program up. Board discretion, again, would be uniforms, cell phones, laptops, training course material, technology support, accounting, architectural software, employee bond, theft. Those are all things that they could provide, but again, that would be board directed. Other items that would need to be outsourced are your vehicle insurance, your certifications, your CAMs, any sort of continuing education for the general manager, background screening. A basic search is $12, and that includes your applicant verification report, social security, number verification, national criminal check, and national sex offender check. Other items
Can you slow down a little bit?
Oh,
I'm kind of old and you're going so fast that I can't. Can you go back like a slide where you're talking? Okay, so now.
There you go.
All right, at the board's discretion. Okay, so this company here is offering for these things that are currently being provided by the management company in place. At the board's discretion, we can have these things provided.
Yes, I mean, the board could elect to buy uniforms. Now, I don't think that the HR Simple or Simple HR would buy them, but the board, if the board felt that the employees needed, shirts that were the same, they could buy them. If they felt like employees needed cell phones, then they could provide that service. But that would, again, that's board discretion.
Okay, now my question on this, right now, we have it.
That's included in the 25% labor.
So in this one, we don't have it unless the board wants it. So if the board wants it, is that included in the burden?
No.
Okay, so if the board, once the board says we do want it, there's no increase in it. That's what I'm trying to find.
The board would have to agree.
Well, there would be no increase to the labor burden, but there would be an increased cost because
for management of the services.
Yeah, no, well, no. Say there are 10 employees and the board wants them to wear uniforms, then the board would vote to have them in uniforms, and then Holly by the Sea would pay for those uniforms. That would not be something that simple HR would do.
So now in first
Sir,
services, is that part of it?
No, let him answer, please. I think the questions that he are asking are valid.
Okay, this is the last question on this, to let him continue.
No, I don't think so.
From this gentleman, yes.
There's gonna be
Please,
other
go
questions that are
ahead.
gonna come up when we see the proposal, ma'am.
Go ahead.
This is open forum.
No, it's not open forum, so please sit down.
You cannot tell me to sit,
Sir,
ma'am.
sir, what were your other questions? I think that was uncalled for. Sir, please don't leave.
No,
Please.
that's okay.
No, I would like you to answer the questions because this was put on not just for the board, but for the membership as well. And so
Well,
I
it
don't.
seems
I
like
don't mind
questioning of
you
anything
asking
is not really
questions.
being invited by the board, and I don't want to be a pest. I don't want to.
Unlike your
Well, you're not.
I just want to find out whether or not we're getting the services that
Sir.
we need.
I agree with you.
Sir, at the end,
Thanks.
Well, there goes a great train. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.
Crawford.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. Also,
Order,
just for
please.
yourself, one thing, you have
Please.
bypassed Robert's Rules of Orders by interrupting the way you did, Mr. President. Robert's Rule of Order states that as long as the question is on the table, it is allowed until a call to close the question is called. That was never done. So for the president to say this question is called without a vote is out of Robert's Rules of Order.
what are you talking about, sir? We
This
haven't
meeting-
called a question or anything.
This meeting is supposed to be in the follow the direction of Robert's Rules of Order.
This
That-
meeting is a board meeting, sir.
Yes, it is.
And everybody is allowed to speak once for 3 minutes.
That might be the
On each
technicality.
subject.
I have to say that as someone who firmly believes in our representative Republican actually spends a very slight living, doing that, and we have a constitution that affords us the right to address the boards, given these are elected positions. Now, I know some of them were appointed due to people stepping down. I think it is quite in poor form to tell someone that they can only ask one question. And I don't mind taking questions, and that's why the representatives are here, because if I can't answer them, they can. And if he is not understanding what I am saying, and he's asking another question to ensure that he understands, I am more than willing to take the 5 minutes or the 3 minutes to answer his questions, or to allow simple HR to answer the questions so that he understands the answer. And for you to cut him off, in my opinion, is just poor form. Again, that's my opinion. I'm just a homeowner.
Oh,
So.
Yvonne, excuse me for a second. I think a lot of this is going back, at least some of my thoughts on what was described as the 25% burden. When I read the contract, under the labor burden, things like technology support, accounting, and architectural software was not listed in there. And the insurance bond and employee theft, I'm thinking that maybe the validity of the 25% burden that has been put forth to this board could be skewed and may not be as accurate as it could possibly be.
Well, I tend to take people at their word until they prove me otherwise, and that's with everybody. And I asked, what the 25% includes, and that was the information I was given. Just as I asked HR simple HR, I'm sorry, I keep getting and Landro, who would not provide any information for theirs. And I am not going to, analyze Mr. Tundello's answers. I'm going to take him at his word, that their percent is what they do. Now, if you have an issue with that, then please take it up with Alex Banbury and for services, because that's something that could have been done months ago, to sit down with them and say there seems to be some duplicitous acts here and rates, so please explain this. But that wasn't done. So please don't accuse me of offering something that's invalid.
Would you agree that some of these items do not apply to all staff? They're kind of one-off items, like the laptop for the general manager, that we supply computers for people here to work on. the laptop
I'm
is
not
a
arguing
one-off
that
thing.
point, Ms.
I know.
Crawford. People want to know what's included in the 25%, so I provided that. If you have an issue with just one laptop, then please sit down and discuss that with First Services. So, board discretion. Any other questions? Board discretion. If the board chooses to pay for these things, then they can provide uniforms, cell phones, laptops, training and course materials, technology support, and your insurance bond. All right, other items, again, that have to be outsourced is your vehicle insurance, your CAMs. So any continuing education for the general manager would have to be paid for by Hollywood. See, it's not included in the labor burden. A background screening is not included in the labor burden. It's $12 per employee. It would be a one-time cost.
Background screening for childcare workers, is it just a basic or is it more than that? And how much would it be?
We have higher levels.
There's,
Go ahead.
at the next slide.
Damn it, okay, sorry about that.
I know I didn't cover all bases, but I tried to cover most of them.
Thank you.
Okay, so this just would be your basic search.
Okay.
All right, additional search, you do have your driving records, so if you're a speed demon, in the state of Florida, and they do a background check, it's gonna come up. Alabama, they can do it, but it costs a little bit extra. They can do a bankruptcy report, a credit report, education verification, and employment verification. All right, and they do include, it does include sexual offenders, doesn't it? Yeah, your national sex offender check would be included in that, so they would do the national database.
I'm just thinking $12 for childcare doesn't seem adequate. And maybe because we've done military, we've been on the bases, and $12 just doesn't seem a lot to ensure that someone taking care of my children is not someone who should not be taking care of my children. You see where I'm coming from? So I'm just wondering, is it what the additional cost is going to be, and whether or not our children are going to be okay. Because if they're not, it's going to be ugly. Not towards you guys. I'm just saying in general,
Right.
there would be an uproar.
Well, I'm not sure what the military does, but from my understanding, they would run the social security number through the national database to see if anything comes up. And I'm not sure how much more. Do they probably do a detailed background check, like someone for a
Actually, yes,
secret?
they do.
They?
Actually, they do.
Well, then,
It takes about 2 months for it to come back.
well, then this is your basic screening, and I have no doubt that the board could elect, more in-depth coverage if that's what they chose.
But I can tell you as a military law enforcement retired, the same searches that they do for the national are the same things the military does. They go through NCIC and it'll be the same checks that are done if it's
For the childcare.
For childcare. It's just technology's made it so much cheaper to do. And in the military, you don't see the price. I mean, you can do them yourself for $39 a person and do everything.
Just seems too cheap, you know what I mean? It just seems
louder, please.
She said it seems too inexpensive for a background
that's the only
check.
thing that bothers me.
Yeah, if you're having a license that obtains to and the state governs it, for child care workers, you'd be required to do a level 2 background check, which is a little bit more typically than $12.
But then that is set by the state.
There are none providers, but there's very little difference for anybody.
So that would be something that we would have to fund regardless. All right, and then your obviously your credit checks and employment verification, and then it does do drug screening. There's a 5-panel which does include
Amphetamine.
Thank you. I don't take them, so it's hard for me to pronounce them.
Neither do I.
Just bring me tequila. That's a joke. Methamphetamines, opiates, and cyclidine is $39 per person, and then a 6-panel is obviously all the 5-panel plus your hydrocodone, acetaminophen, Lortab, and oxycodone. So those are again board discretion. So if there is a position such as childcare where they wanted to, randomly check or check upon employment, they could do that. But for each time there is a drug test, it is those prices respectively. Any other questions? All right, so Landrum is very, very short. This information was gleaned from the packet that was provided to me, and that packet was provided to Ms. Crawford on December 19th. I did speak with Dave the representative, and he just would not give me any number unless there's a form, or several forms, a packet, employment packet that he wanted completed, and I am not privy to a lot of the information that is on there. So this information is based on, some of those forms were partially completed back in December. That is what this is based on. So please keep in mind that these rates could change, and that was reflected in the report that was provided to Ms. Crawford in December, that the rates could change. So you can ask me a lot of questions about Landrum, but chances are I'm going to say, I don't know. So they do provide HR services, and they provided HR services to Holly by the Sea before the decision was made to hire management, so they are familiar with Holly by the Sea. Their building and property management rates are 17.02 and 14.25 respectively for 9012, and then 21 and 21.59 and 17.69%. And just like simple HR, those rates do cap out at 7,000. Okay, that's why you've got the different rates there. All right. Let's see. So the example they provided was this. This is an example. So based on the number of employees that were provided to them, it would be $549,000 with an estimated annual payroll of $168,000 for your Florida 9012 and $381,000 for Florida, or for FL 9015. $101,105 was the estimated labor burden, and that included your taxes, your workers' comp, and your Landrum fee. Deducting the current burden of taxes, workers' comp, Landrum services would be $27,725 annually, or $13.32 an hour. Additional costs for drug screening would be $23 for new hires. Any questions on that?
Did you have that broken down? I think some of them gave a fee.
This was exactly the information that was provided to you within that packet, verbatim. Yes, I don't know.
I'm not trying to shoot holes in this.
Oh, please do.
I'm trying to gather information.
Yes, I
It
understand.
sounds like we have Landrum was given a number of employees. That's what I just heard. So that number of employees should be given to simple HR so we can.
No, they did. They were given the number of 15, 9 and 6.
All right, 9 and 6.
Well, it was 9 for the
Clerical.
90112, 9012.
Is that the same number that was given to?
As far as I know.
Yeah.
But they did qualify their rate in the packet with the statement that it could change based on the full information being provided. Because what they sent to me was a packet that was like 5 or 6 pages that they wanted completed with information regarding employees. That's not information that I have. I spoke with Ms. Crawford, and she was able to provide some of that information in December, and that's where these rates are based on.
We're talking spaces, they're talking faces.
Can I explain this a little bit? Some of this information was to do with the health care, and it was personal information of the employees that we didn't have. Every company that quoted were asked to quote 2 workman's comp codes, the maintenance code and the clerical code. Now, some of them thought that we could be using lower codes, but just so that we would have a comparative code, I asked them all to quote the same, a maintenance person and a clerical person. Because the workman's comp is different for those 2. Landrum believed that they used before, when they did Holly by the Sea's payroll before, that they actually used a lower code. And I think this is what they meant. I didn't want them to do what they did before. I wanted everybody to be quoting the same code, a maintenance person and a clerical person. And maintenance people and clerical people are how First Service do the workman's comp.
However they're classified, I just think it's important that we ensure that they're classified in accordance with for the law. Okay, the health insurance, I noticed, yes.
How many employees does First Service have working here now?
35.
35.
So the numbers given to these companies were basically
Cut in half.
more than half.
Alright, again, with the insurance, they could not, and he would not even provide a qualified rate for a labor burden unless the packet was completed. And so, again, this information was taken from what was provided to Ms. Crawford in December. And I spoke to him at length, and he would not, and I asked him if he could just give me a range, especially with the healthcare. Just give me a range with the understanding that it could be higher, lower, in the middle, and he just said, according to his boss, they would not do it. So again, this information is accurate as far as it was in December, but it could change. And again, but again, not simple, but Landrum has provided these services for probably by the sea before. All right, so it would the cost would largely depend on the policy selected and the board's decision to pay the premium, 100%, 75%, 50%, okay, because that would determine how much Poly by the Sea pays. And then they do provide dental and vision coverage that is available. So that concludes, and I expect a round of applause by the way. Are there any other questions before I turn it over to Mary?
Thank you very much indeed, Yvonne, for your work.
No worries, anytime. Are there any more questions for Simple HR? I know Pete Peterson's going to come up.
I just wanted to add something. When I took over the board, I was curious about at that time, the Landrum burden. So I had the last 2 or 3 months invoices pulled, and despite the numbers on here, the labor burden, the final bottom line for those months, not including health insurance, and obviously not including drug testing or phones or computers or uniforms, there was like an 18.4% was the aggregate. So it was still higher than the highest 17 point something that they had on here. And then another month it was like about 19.8%. So it for whatever they're quoting for this thing, the actuals 2 years ago were 1% or 2 higher once it fell out.
And I know that the board last spring had looked into, when they were considering terminating the contract or going through those negotiations, they did look at Landrum, so I'm not sure if any of that information is still available, but that would be more recent than Mr. Peterson's numbers, if maybe that could be found, to provide information on what Landrum could offer.
And some of these rates, the food and soda, whatever, change each year, so.
Yes, just like the salary cap, went from 8,000 to 7,000. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
How do these burdens compare based on the amount of employees? So is 15 rated different than 30?
No, it's the same. Yeah, the percent is the same.
Who's next? Did you want this?
Could I request a brief break of about 5 minutes?
Okay.
I have a bladder that's excited to do.